By the time Mara realized someone had been inside the cabin, she had already spent one night there alone. The nearest town was 22 miles away. Her phone had 1 bar of signal, and the host kept saying he wasn't sure what she meant. Remote locations have a way of making people feel small, not because of the silence, not because of the dark, because of the math, the nearest neighbor, the distance to a road that leads somewhere, how long it would take for anyone to reach you if something went wrong. In these 3 stories, the people involved did not panic because something strange happened. They panicked when they understood what the strange thing meant. The first thing Mara noticed was that the back bedroom door was already closed. She had read the listing twice. 3 bedrooms, open layout, private wooded lot. The host had left the key in a lockbox near the front porch. Everything about the property looked exactly like the photos, except for that door. Closed tight, not slightly ajar. The way you close a door when you want it to stay that way. She was there for 4 nights. A work retreat. The cabin sat on nearly 11 acres in rural Western Virginia, and the nearest town was 22 miles on a road the GPS had labeled as seasonal. She had not thought much about that label when she booked it. She thought about it now. Before I continue, think about what you would have done here. A closed door in an unfamiliar property. No signal. No neighbor visible from any window. Would you open it? Mara messaged the host instead. He replied 12 minutes later, said all 3 rooms were fully accessible, said he wasn't sure what she meant. She walked back upstairs. The door was open now, maybe 6 inches. The room behind it was dark. She pushed it the rest of the way. A single bed, a dresser, a window facing the tree line. She checked the closet. Empty. She checked under the bed. A phone charging cable was coiled near the baseboard, plugged into the wall on both ends. The outlet was live. She sent the host a photo. He said the cleaner had prepped the cabin 2 days prior and hadn't reported anything. He had no idea where the cable came from. She left it plugged in and told herself it was the cleaner's. That was the first mistake. That night, she heard something move above her. There was an attic access panel in the upstairs hallway, the kind that sits flush with the ceiling and blends in if you don't know to look. The sound was slow, a shift, then a pause, then another shift. She checked her phone, 1 bar. She messaged the host, no reply. Then the sound stopped. She went back to bed, told herself it was an animal. The next morning, the host replied and said he would ask his maintenance contact to look into it. She felt better, for about 3 hours. Then she went to make coffee and noticed the back door was unlocked. Not just unlocked. The deadbolt had been turned from the inside. She had locked that door herself the night before. She remembered it specifically because she had walked the full perimeter of the downstairs before bed. She had even stacked her duffel bag against the sliding glass door that led to the rear deck. The duffel bag was still there. The back door was 15 feet away. Open deadbolt, no sign of forced entry. She called the host. He said older cabins sometimes shifted from pressure changes. He was calm, almost dismissive. She was looking at a standard deadbolt while he spoke. It does not move on its own. She packed a bag and put it near the front door. She drove 11 miles until she had enough signal to file a non-emergency report. The responding officer arrived and walked through the cabin with her. He found nothing immediately alarming. Then he checked the attic panel. It had been disturbed from below, not above. The edges were scuffed in a pattern consistent with something pushing upward and settling back down. There were no animals in the attic. There was a thin foam sleeping pad folded against the far wall. Mara thought about the cable in the bedroom. It had not been left behind by a cleaner. Someone had needed a place to charge a phone. The officer asked how many nights she had already stayed there. 1. He told her not to stay a second. She later found a local community forum where previous guests had reported hearing movement at night. One mentioned a door that seemed to open on its own. The host had responded to each complaint the same way. He said he wasn't sure what they meant. Inside a building, even an unfamiliar one, there are still walls. a locked door, a phone that might eventually find a bar of signal, some version of shelter. But outside on a road with no other cars, there may be nothing between you and the person following you. The threat in the next story did not break into anywhere. It used the road itself. And when the woman driving realized what was happening, there was already only one direction left to go. Diane had driven that stretch of mountain road twice before, once in the summer, once the previous fall. Both times, she had the windows down and the radio on, and felt nothing. This time, she noticed the car at the trailhead, a dark gray pickup, parked on the gravel shoulder at the entrance to the Calvert Creek Fire Road. No one inside. Windows up. Engine off. A faded bumper sticker on the rear panel, too worn to read. She slowed slightly as she passed it. No hiker visible on the trail, no gear by the tailgate, no reason at that hour for a vehicle to be parked there with no one around it. She noted it the way you note anything that does not quite fit, half a second. Then she released it and kept driving. That detail mattered later. She was heading to a lake property owned by her family, 9 miles up the mountain on a fire road that turned from pavement to gravel at mile 1 and from gravel to packed dirt at mile 2. She had been coming here since she was a child. She knew the road. She had driven in after work. That meant she was arriving after dark, which she had done before without issue. The GPS lost satellite connection at mile 4. She expected that. What she did not expect was the gate. 3 miles from the property, her headlights caught it before she had time to slow. A full cattle gate stretched across the entire width of the road. Steel frame. A heavy chain looped twice through the latch post. A padlock the size of her fist. She stopped the car and sat with the engine running. There was no gate here the last time she visited. There had never been a gate here. This was a private family access road. There was no utility easement, no neighboring property on this stretch, no reason for any structure to be blocking it. She got out. The padlock was commercial grade, the kind used on construction sites or industrial storage, not the kind you find at a rural hardware store. She crouched and looked at the ground around the gate posts. The soil was disturbed, recently dug. The edges of the holes were still clean. The dirt that had been displaced was mounded to one side and had not yet scattered or compressed from weather or foot traffic. This gate had not been here a week ago. She tried calling her father. No signal. She got back in the car, turned around on the narrow road, a slow, careful 3-point turn with forest on both sides, and drove back down toward the last point where she'd had reception. That was nearly 3 miles behind her. At one bar, she called her father. He answered on the second ring. She explained the gate. He was quiet for a moment, then said there was absolutely no gate on that road. He had never installed one. The county had no permit to install one. No one had contacted him about any access restriction. He told her to drive to the junction at the base of the mountain and wait. He would call the county sheriff's non-emergency line. She agreed and started driving down. She reached the junction 2 minutes later. The pickup was there. Same vehicle. Parked at the junction, facing back up the mountain. Facing the direction she had just come from. She did not stop. She drove past at normal speed, eyes forward. In her peripheral vision, she registered that the truck was occupied now, a shape behind the wheel. She got 50 yards past it and checked her mirror. The truck had not moved. She kept going. She was looking for the white scuff mark on the rim, a detail she had noticed at the trailhead. On the second glance in the mirror, she saw it. Same vehicle. This is where most people would have made the wrong choice. Stopped to confront it, turned around, gone back to the gate to try again. Diane drove toward the nearest town, 11 miles. Half a mile from the junction, the truck's headlights came on. She watched them in the mirror. It had waited, not pulled out immediately, waited until she was far enough ahead that it could follow without being obvious. She sped up. The gap held. The truck maintained the same distance regardless of her speed. She called 911. The dispatcher asked for her exact location. She gave the road name. The dispatcher said it was not appearing on their mapping system, a known issue with county fire roads that had never been entered into the database. They asked for the nearest cross street or mile marker. She looked out both windows. Trees. Darkness. No signs. She told the dispatcher she was driving toward town and gave a description of the truck. The dispatcher said a unit would be directed toward her. The truck was still in her mirror. She did not slow down. The first lights she saw were the canopy of a gas station at the edge of town. She pulled directly under them, parked facing the road, and left the engine running. The truck appeared at the entrance to the lot. It did not pull in. It sat at the far edge of the entrance, headlights on, engine running. She could not see the driver from that distance. She sat still and kept her phone in her hand. 2 minutes passed. The truck drove away slowly, back in the direction she had come from. She did not move until the deputy arrived 18 minutes later. They drove back to the fire road together. The gate was still there. The deputy photographed the padlock and noted that the brand was not one sold at any hardware store within 40 miles. He photographed the gate posts and the tire impressions in the soft soil around them. One set coming in, one set going out. He estimated the gate had been installed within the previous 36 hours. Then he pointed out something Diane had not focused on in the dark. The gate was not centered on the road the way a functional barrier would be. It was positioned with the chain and padlock on the downhill side, the side she had approached from. The lock faced her direction of travel. Whoever installed it had expected someone to arrive from below, and without a key, the only way past it on foot would have been to climb over. In the dark. Alone. 9 miles from the property. 3 miles of that with no signal. This is the part that still does not sit right. Her father had filed a routine property survey with the county 18 months earlier. Standard process. Part of a boundary confirmation. Public record. Accessible to anyone who searched the parcel number. It listed the access road, the property address, the owner of record. The truck was never identified. No plate number was recovered from any camera in the area. The gate was removed by County Road Services 2 days after the incident. The deputy told her there was not enough to open a formal investigation. Her father has not used the property since. In that story, someone found the one choke point on a road and used it. They understood the exit before Diane did. That is frightening. But the final story is different, because the man at the center of it was not driving somewhere unfamiliar. He had been going there for 15 years, and someone had been studying the property for longer than he realized. If grounded, realistic horror is what you come here for, subscribe to Nightfall Narratives. New stories post regularly. Now, the last one. Garrett had inherited the lodge from his uncle. A main house, a detached tool shed, 12 acres of mixed timber in northern Minnesota. Remote enough that the power ran on a private line, not a grid connection. Remote enough that the county road turned to gravel 4 miles before the driveway. Remote enough that he had no cell service from the moment he left the county road until the moment he returned to it. He visited twice a year. 15 years. He knew which floorboards were soft, which door needed lifting to close properly, and that the old motion sensor on the front porch had stopped working, and he had never replaced it. He arrived on a Friday in late October. The shed door was fully closed. He always left it propped open at the end of a visit. The latch was difficult and the door warped in cold weather, so leaving it closed meant it would be harder to open on the next arrival. He noted it and went inside. Around 9 that evening, he looked out the kitchen window toward the shed. The interior light was on. He went to check. The bulb was warm. He walked the perimeter of the shed. Nothing. He went back inside and told himself he was being overly cautious. He woke at 2:14 a.m. A slow dragging sound from the back of the house, the side facing the tree line. He lay still for 30 seconds. It stopped. He checked the back door, locked. In the morning, one of the deck chairs had been moved from the far end of the deck to directly in front of the rear window, facing inward. He photographed it and spent the morning constructing explanations. Wind, uneven decking. That afternoon, he walked the perimeter of the property. On the north side, 30 feet into the tree line, he found a cleared area. Not cleared by machinery, done by hand, over time. Cut stems at different growth stages, some brown and dry, some still slightly green at the break. This had happened across multiple visits. From that spot, the rear bedroom window was directly visible. He went back to the house and called the county sheriff from the landline. A deputy arrived that afternoon. He walked the clearing and found 3 things: a fire ring, low and concealed, built with stones used more than once. The ash at the center disturbed recently, within the last few days. A dry bag tucked under a shelf of rock. Inside, a folded rain poncho, a headlamp with charged batteries, a sealed bag of crackers, and at the edge of the clearing, a partially buried length of copper wire. The deputy traced it toward the house. It terminated beneath the rear exterior wall, running along the same path as the landline conduit, not connected to anything inside, but close enough. An investigator came the following day. No signs of forced entry. Nothing disturbed inside. But the investigator checked the motion sensor on the front porch, the one Garrett assumed had simply worn out. The wiring behind the casing had been cut, cleanly, not frayed, not corroded. Based on oxidation at the wire ends, it had been done at least a year prior. Someone had removed the porch light's ability to activate on motion, so that moving toward the house from the tree line at night would not trigger it. The investigator estimated the cleared site had been used across at least 2 years, possibly more. Garrett tried to work backward through 15 years of visits, whether any moment now looked different in hindsight. He thought of one. 6 years ago, late October. He arrived to find mud on the back porch. He assumed he had tracked it in himself. He had a clear memory of stepping through the wet driveway. But the mud was on the side of the porch nearest the tree line, and he always came in through the front. The investigator listed the case as an ongoing property surveillance matter. No individual was ever identified. Garrett sold the property the following spring. He still thinks about something the investigator said near the end of the second visit. The fire ring in the clearing was built low, designed to minimize visible light and smoke. Whoever built it had not been hiding from Garrett. They had been hiding from the sky. 3 properties, 3 different kinds of isolation. In each case, the setting was not just a backdrop, it was the mechanism. The cabin worked because no one nearby would have noticed. The road worked because there was only one way out. The lodge worked because someone understood it better than the person who owned it. That is what makes remote places different. Not that they are quiet, but that the quieter they are, the longer something can go on before anyone finds out. If you are still here at the end, subscribe to Nightfall Narratives before the next one starts. These go up regularly and the next video is close to finished. Stay aware.